Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Licensing Committee. In order to assist the process this evening, I must ask everybody to ensure that their mobile phones are either off or on silent, including my own. We would be grateful if you would remain quiet whilst the meeting is in progress. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be filmed by the Council and broadcast live on the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. If you are seated in the chamber, it is possible... There's no one there, is there? Can I? All right, I'll carry on. If you're seated in the chamber, it is possible that your cameras will capture your image. By your presence, you are deemed to consent to being filmed and the use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and or training purposes. The chairman of the meeting can, at their discretion, terminate or suspend filming in their own opinion. Continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of the meeting, or if they consider that continued filming might infringe the rights of any individual or breach any statutory provision. Finally, there are no planned fire drills for this evening. If the fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the building immediately via the fire exits. The first item on the agenda is the election of a chairman. Do I have any nominations, please? Sorry. Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I propose Councillor Bernie Davis as chairman, please?
I'll second that. David Jones. That proposition. Is there any other further propositions? No. That proposition's before you. All those in favour, please signify in the usual manner. That's unanimous. Bernie, would you like to take your seat? Sorry, I've started from that one. Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you, members, for that. So we'll go to item 2 then, the election of the vice chairman of this committee. Councillor Nottage. Thank you. I'm happy to second that. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Jones. Is there somebody who wants to second that? Thank you, Denise. And we'll have to go to the vote. Well, the ballot has been taken, members, and the result is that Paul Hilliard is the Vice Chair of this committee. Item 3 on the agenda, apologies for absence. I bring apologies from Liesl Smith. Ray? Any other apologies, members? No, thank you. Item 4, declarations of interest. Councillor Jones, Denise.
It's just to say that I do occasionally use taxis, but I don't think I've got a pecuniary interest.
It may well be that you might have to pay a bit more, we don't know. Right, the minutes of the last meeting, 23rd of October. Right. Yes, thank you. I don't intend to wade through them, members, because I'm sure you've read them. If there's any you object to or you don't agree to.
You've just been given them.
Yeah, but you must have read them, surely.
Surely.
I know you've only just been given them, but I can't think that there would be anything contentious there that you wouldn't agree to. If you're happy to agree to the minutes, can I have a show of hands, please? David, you didn't show your hand. Is there a problem? Yes, exactly. Thank you. Right, item 6, can we call upon young Sean Whitney to lead us through why we should raise our cab fares in Christchurch?
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, members. Yes, as Councillor Davis just said, this is to deal with a request from the taxi trade to increase the fares this year. Obviously, the legislation gives the council the power to set hackney carriage fares, and those fares legally only relate to journeys commencing from a taxi rank or that is hailed in the street, but many of the companies use those as the basis for private hire journeys, which are not legally bound to be restricted to those fares. The table in paragraph 3.3 shows the current fares which were granted back in 2017, and in section 4 the table there basically shows for comparison purposes the rates in the neighbouring authorities across Dorset and also New Forest, as obviously that's a local council to Christchurch, and in there it shows the not only the actual cost of the journeys, but also the times that the various tariffs come into force. So the taxi trade, as I said, at the liaison group has made the request that fare structures be brought into line with the Bournemouth and Poole charges, and that also included a request that the timings for the tariffs are amended, because there was a slight difference between the current Christchurch ones and the Bournemouth and Poole ones. And so the tariffs as set out in paragraph 5.2 show the increase in charges and also the change in the times that those tariffs would apply between. The main reason for that is to do with the fact that obviously the way in which the area is serviced now, the various taxi companies that used to be more independent are now working together. Well, they actually been bought out, so they are effectively one company. And what they will do essentially is, if somebody jumps in a taxi in Christchurch and goes to Poole, then because of the technology that they have, if somebody phones up to book a private hire journey from Poole to somewhere else, then they know which taxi is closest and they will actually contact that particular taxi. So obviously from the taxi driver's point of view, having a single tariff means they don't have to switch between the different requirements based in the different councils. So essentially that's what before you today. If you agree to those charges, then there is a period of public consultation. If there is no objection to the proposal, then after the 14-day consultation period that can be granted. However, if there is any objection to that through the consultation, then it has to be brought back before you for you to hear those objections, and then you can make a decision then as to whether you approve the new fees. So unless there's anything else I can help with.
Thank you, Sean. Members, questions to the officer, please. I'm sure there may be some.
Thank you, Chairman. You mentioned about the consolidation. So is there just one taxi firm now that covers Christchurch?
No, there is more than one taxi firm, but they in sort of name. So there's Streamline, Christchurch Taxis. United is obviously the biggest company, so they do tend to work effectively as one, but legally they are still separate companies. But the drivers tend to be used as though they were a single pool of drivers.
And just following on, so you obviously mentioned this is about taxis on rank. So pre-booked is about supply and demand. You agree with price. And did Uber come this way or not yet?
Yes, the first part of your question, yes, this only applies to those on the rank or hailed in the streets. Private hire, they will use these charges, but if you phone up and negotiate, then it's perfectly legal not to use those charges. As far as Uber is concerned, we had obviously the application for an operator's license, but we've had nothing since, and maybe the outcome of today will lead on to something.
I'm wondering if I can ask a question. Sorry, did you want to ask a question before me, David?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. I understand the point that you've made that United Tax is now probably by far the largest group. I understand though that there are a number of operators who are either solo operators, they have one taxi or possibly two. Was the recommendation, the liaison group, could you just tell us something about the makeup of it, please?
Yes, certainly. I mean, some of the independents and the smaller sort of firms would not necessarily be represented on that particular group. To some extent, it depends who turns up. They are entitled to, but certainly it was probably some of the larger companies that have put the request for this revision forward.
Councillor Nottage.
So if I can get this quite clear in my brain, the taxi drivers met, the taxi drivers agreed the prices should go up, and you're asking us to go out to public consultation to have that increase confirmed. That public consultation is the wider public consultation. And you're saying, I think, that if the public say that's too much or it's not right, we will meet again and discuss it.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Well, just one point on that then. I note that at 5, it says a request for fare structure to be brought fully in line with Bournemouth Borough and Poole Borough. At this stage, that has nothing to do with LGR, right?
Correct. Yeah. This is purely to do with the sort of pragmatic delivery of taxi drivers. Setting the rates on their taxi so that they can know the right rate in the right area at the right time. And if they've only got one, then obviously it lessens the opportunity for mistakes.
Thank you. I think if there are no more questions, we can go to debate. Floor is open. I do apologise.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems to me that there's a small flaw in this. Obviously, the big companies like the idea of one single rate to cover Bournemouth, Poole and Christchurch. But it seems to me again that the reason is for administrative convenience. I'd be a lot happier if we knew more of the views of the independent operators and the smaller operators, because it's very funny, but all these administrative convenience affairs aren't necessarily public convenience, and I'm just a little concerned that we're being asked to nod through a recommendation. Yes, I know that the public will be consulted, and I know that they will have the opportunity to express concern, but it seems to me that what we're getting is an increase in fares without necessarily an increase in efficiency or better service, or it's not to do with inflation, it's just for the convenience of the big company that took over one of its rivals, and this is what happens when you get a monopoly situation. So I'm a little concerned about this. I don't know that I'd like to vote against the recommendation, but I think I might like to see the results of the consultation when they come in before making a final decision.
Mr. Nottage?
I just think that I just hope that the public actually consult and understand what is going on. I'm not comfortable in not allowing this recommendation to go through, but I would propose it that is accepted as laid out, with the proviso that we actually make as much knowledge as we can available to the public in respect of tariff increases and what that means in respect of the efficiencies which they will be enjoying. So I would recommend that we accept as laid out.
Fred?
I'd second that proposal, but I would like the public to be aware of what they're voting for. As if you do a very quick calculation, that's between £30 and £40 to get to Poole from Christchurch. And I just want people to realise what they're voting for if it goes out. And I think we need to actually play the white man and actually publicise sort of fares so that they know.
Thank you. So are we all happy then that we're happy with the recommendation subject to the results of the consultation? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I accept the comments that have been made so far, but I wonder if any other member feels that rather than just give a blank check and say go ahead, that we are the ones who are responsible. And I think I'd like to see the results of the consultation. So to add at the, if I have a seconder, I'd like to propose that we add at the end of Councillor Nottage's recommendation, Councillor Nottage's proposal, something on the lines of, and that before consent is given, this matter is, the matter comes back to the committee for a final decision.
I think you'll find that that's what I already said, actually, David. If you're happy for this recommendation to go through, subject to the results of the consultation, then I will put it to the vote. Thank you.
On that understanding, Chairman, I will press the amendment.
Councillor Nottage, did you
I
want
was
to say?
just going to say it's easy because we could actually delegate it to the chair and the vice chair of the committee.
So shall we go to the vote on the recommendation that we've agreed? Sorry, I do apologise. Councillor Roths?
Separate from the discussion, the remark made about playing the white man, I would hope that that is not put in the minutes, just in case nearly everybody outside think it was me that made the remark. Thank you.
I'll retract that remark publicly. I don't know what I was thinking about, but I couldn't think of any words.
I don't think Daniel even heard it. So, okay. Okay, now the recommendation is that, yes, we accept subject to the results of the proposal. Are we happy with that? All those in favour? I think Sean is going to tell us about slavery now. Are you, Sean?
Due Chair, yes, this is a
Modern slavery.
modern slavery.
And that's nothing to do with you and Denise, David? Okay, modern slavery this is.
Yes, this is to do with the duty that's been placed on all local authorities and the police to notify the government if they believe a person may be a victim of human trafficking or slavery. Essentially, what's happened is the district and borough councils and the county council in Dorset have got together, along with the police, to agree one procedure. Obviously, the police tend to lead on these matters, but there may well be occasions when local authority officers encounter the same problems, and so it was felt appropriate that there was just one policy to follow right across Dorset. So that policy is set out in Appendix 1, and then at Appendix 2 there is a sort of a flow chart, if you like, that that officers will be able to refer to, so they can consistently make sure they're all referring in the same manner, and then the various contacts are also set out so that officers are able to contact colleagues should they feel the need to seek further assistance or advice. Basically, the same procedure is being taken to all of the councils across Dorset if it hasn't already gone, and so essentially it's just seeking to adopt, for members to agree to adopt that policy, so that we're able to be in line with the other councils, and should we be unfortunate enough to encounter such a situation, that we can quickly deal with it and put the various measures in place to protect the people.
Thanks, Sean. I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions now, members. Shall we go straight to debate? I'm sorry, Fred, I didn't see you put your hand up.
I'm behind you. All right.
He should be making a note of this.
I'm just thinking of we're putting this policy into existence, but with LGR coming up, would we not need to review this next year again, because we don't know whether or not there's also a consultation out for parishes, and would parishes be involved in this sort of thing?
I'm sorry, do you want to answer that?
I mean, essentially at the moment, the duty is on the district and borough councils. So there may in due course be a role for the parish and town councils, but and certainly the LGR process may or may not have an impact on when or if the policy needs to be renewed. But obviously something could happen in the interim, and so it's felt that having this procedure in place now at least safeguards those people, like I say, that we may come across in the course of our day-to-day work.
Councillor Denise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I just say that I'm glad that we are tackling this question of modern day slavery. But looking at page 18, could the officer clarify why the pilot has been on hold since the 1st of January 2017 and continue to be on hold for the foreseeable future? Because it seems to me that it's a shame that what is a problem in this day and age, unfortunately, seems to be the only ones who are actually taking action are the Salvation Army. And I think that is unfortunate, though I do believe in the work of the Salvation Army, but I would have thought that more other groups could have been involved.
Yes, I think the national referral mechanism, the pilot for that, it's a government decision that they have put that on hold. And it may well be it comes back into force. I mean, essentially, all that pilot does is transfer some of the decision making from the sort of the national bodies down to the local bodies. It's sometimes felt there's some difficulty with that, because actually with that responsibility does come certain challenges, shall we say, should you not get it right. There are some quite significant training aspects, obviously, because it is an important area and you need to understand the sort of the technical background to it. So when the national referral mechanism was in place, essentially the police were the lead authority. They were the go-to people anyway, and so it's felt by having this particular policy in place, then it's a more robust decision-making protocol, and the police, who are then making the decisions, are obviously the experts in the matter and can make sure the appropriate advice is given to deal with that particular situation. With regard to the Salvation Army, again, I'm not sure whether across Dorset other organisations were sought out, but certainly I think the Salvation Army are certainly that initial port of call. If it was felt there was a need for other agencies or voluntary sector organisations who could perhaps provide a more appropriate service or assistance at the time, then I'm sure that the various agencies would be in contact with them to make sure that they can deliver that.
Because of the other hats that I wear with community safety, I can tell members that this is a high priority with the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Community Safety and Criminal Justice Board, and of course the Community Safety Partnership. It is on the list and is being closely monitored. Are there any more questions, members? Is there any debate? Oh, so I keep missing you. I'm sorry, John.
I left the Dorset committee in my time 9 years ago, the police authority, and it was being discussed then. So I think while it may not have been discussed as much in those days, it was certainly being considered. Right, sorry.
Let me give you a simple example, members. We're all going to have our cars washed somewhere. And if you go to any of the car washes in Christchurch, certainly in Barrett Road or Sainsbury's or wherever it is, it's always cash, and they're always mostly East Europeans. Nobody seems to have picked that up. But it could be, are these people modern day slaves? We don't know until somebody complains. Right. Can we have somebody propose the recommendation, please? Councillor Hallam, thank you. Is there a seconder? Right. No, I think we've got supplementaries now. Yes, thank you. Right. Now, I'm sorry about the supplementaries. Councillors. For some unknown reason, this committee reports on outside body reports from the Police and Crime Panel, the Community Safety Partnership, and the Community Safety and Criminal Justice Board. We only meet once a year as a full committee, so that members, I do send them on to you, but members only get a chance to talk to them at this committee. My own view is that this is not the committee that these reports should be attached to, but I'll throw that open to the floor. I'm the only person that can answer your questions on all of these meetings. They're there, and I'm sure you don't want to ask me a lot of questions. Over to you, members. Rich.
Well, I'll repeat what I said at the beginning of last year. The idea that such an important subject as community safety should be a part of this committee's responsibilities and not the recently formed Community Services Committee is a complete anathema and just a complete nonsense, because this is so important to the people of Christchurch. And the idea that your visits and the work that you do is only reviewed by this committee once or twice a year is in my opinion, not particularly efficient. So I would request, please, that you as leader and the deputy leader make a representation to the leadership of this council. Sorry?
You want me to make representation to the leader, or you asking me as the chair?
To the leader, to representation to the leader of this council in respect of actually making sure that the subject of community safety is high on the list of community services and not this committee. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I quite understand the concerns that have been raised, but of course, like any other committee, it is within the powers of this committee to refer a matter to any other committee. In one incarnation, matters relating to public safety came to a scrutiny committee, because many years ago we were discussing the pact structure. But licensing committee is a quasi-judicial committee, and it may be that the thought is that such matters like this should be handled as quasi-judicial. I think it is, there is no harm in asking, I would think we can do this either by an informal approach to the leader or by taking a request to council to review our terms of reference. But I don't know whether it's appropriate to refer it to community, to the Communities Committee, get it right, because of course Communities Committee is a political and a policy committee, and we're dealing here with matters of public safety, and these are matters that could well be discussed in a quasi-judicial atmosphere. I think as in the position that we are, it may be appropriate to let sleeping dogs lie until the future is a little clearer, but I don't think there'd be any harm, Chairman, in you having a word with the leader and deputy leader and seeing if this should be, the terms of reference of this committee should be reviewed, that these matters should go to scrutiny committee as a quasi-judicial committee, or if we want to do it as a policy item, that it could go to Commuters Committee. But I think there is a strong case for saying that Licensing Committee should have this responsibility. Because of course, if alcohol and such like are a cause of crime and disorder, then we would seem to be the appropriate committee to deal with it, and let alone having your experience as chairman.
Before you come in, John, I hear what you say, but you will see that one of the reports before you relates to a police and crime party meeting that took place in February, and we're now in June, and nobody on this council, apart from me and the papers that I send out to Democratic Services, is aware of what took place at that police and crime panel meeting way back in February. But I'll go on to John. John Locke.
Chairman, could I ask that my memory be refreshed, because I thought that the minutes of this committee come up at the next council meeting in the list of committees, and nobody ever takes any notice of them. I was only going to suggest that we attach to the minutes of this committee a note saying that this matter should be brought to the attention of the full council, and the officer's report is certainly a start that's made to it, because I've thought for years that rightly or wrongly, that we as members of this committee are only here to take the blame if anything goes wrong. Did I make that clear?
You did, John. You did, John. But I'm concerned that, bearing in mind what I said earlier, that you've got reports in front of you that are months old and nobody knows anything about them apart from this committee. I would welcome any further comment on this, because I really don't think that this committee should be responsible for community safety. Councillor Nottage, you put your hand up first.
Well, I think if you actually read through the papers that just been giving us to us and see the level of activity which is being undertaken on subjects of hate crime, domestic abuse, sexual violence and child exploitation, modern slavery, knife crime strategy, and so on and so forth. One of the key priorities of this council, and as a result of the residents' requests that health, well-being and crime and safety are the key issues that we should be dealing with. And as you say, these important subjects and the words associated with them from February have not, as I understand, been included in the council reports, nor have we had any debate about them, and yet they are key issues which in the past have been dealt with in high priority. And I think we should go back to that situation for the benefit of our community.
David.
To you, Chairman, if there is a problem in that the committee is not seeing the reports, the obvious answer is that it's in the Chairman's power to call an extraordinary meeting, and we should have possibly more meetings of this committee. The fact that we are on a different cycle should not impair us doing the job that Council has entrusted to us by approving the terms of reference of the committees. So I don't, as I've said, nothing that the previous speaker has mentioned convinces me that it's in the wrong place. It's not a matter of location, it's a matter of time. I agree, these are important issues. But we can face those issues. We are a properly constituted committee of the council, and there is some little experience around this table to deal with those matters. And it would seem to me that the answer could be to seek a review of our cycle of meetings so that we can deal with things as they arise. And of course, Councillor Lofts is right. It's open to any member to bring any matter to full council.
Councillor Hallam.
Well, I was actually going to reiterate and just say that I think that these are comprehensive reports that we should be seeing more often, and whether that is through going on a communities and reviewed there, or whether it's we meet on a more regular basis. I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that there is a lot of information here, and for it to have sat there with nobody else to have seen it from February to now, I don't think is right at all. And they are all key issues, so absolutely, whichever way we go, we've got to improve the communication.
Councillor Lofts.
I should have added in what I was saying, Chairman, and the leader being informed of what we're saying, like now, not just wait until the next council.
Thank you, John. I mean, my own view is that, you know, not because I do it, but the meetings that I attend affect the whole populace of this borough and Dorset as a whole, of course. But nobody knows anything about them because they only come to this meeting. So I need some sort of help here, guys. Where do we want to go with this? Do we want more meetings of the licensing committee, or is it your wish that I approach the leader and deputy leader and say, we really need to put this on somebody else's agenda?
Through you, Chairman, I would suggest that the best and probably the most appropriate way forward to start with is for you and the Vice Chairman to speak to the leader and deputy leader and say there is concern, there is valid concern. I don't think there's anybody around this table who would say it isn't a matter for concern. And to say to them, because it is their responsibility, we are not happy with the present situation, and we would ask the leader and deputy leader, in conjunction with you and the Vice Chairman, to discuss what is the best way forward. So I'll propose that, Chairman.
Before we go any further, Sean, I do apologise. You should have gone ages ago. Say goodbye to all your friends, and thank you for coming. I do apologise, Sean. Councillor Nott.
I think that's what I proposed 10 minutes ago, Mr. Chairman. So I'm quite happy that you and the deputy chairman here go and have a word with the leader and the deputy leader in order to actually make them understand that what we're dealing with here are some key issues, and they're key issues, of course, of Pan Dorset, because what we're talking about here is territorial policing, which might be changing, but over 5 years ago, we actually decided that we would actually make Community Safety and Criminal Justice Board pari passu with the territorial policing. So this is a far more general approach affecting all councils in Dorset, and therefore, in my opinion, should be given more priority, however way we do it, in respect of linking with the other key issues that community services deal with, because they're all linked. And I can't see why modern slavery and sexual abuse and so on is connected with employing taxi drivers to run around at our vast expense. So please, I agree with the councillor. Let's talk.
Do you know, I never ever thought I would hear councillors Nottingham Jones actually agreeing to something. So we have achieved something tonight. Is there anything else?
It has happened, Chairman, but about once in a blue moon. As
Councillor
I should
Watts.
say, once every Preston Guild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My advice to you, if I could be so bold, Mr. Chairman, is with these reports having such gravitas and weight, that, again, agreeing with the councillor opposite me, it is your prerogative to call an emergency meeting. The minute you've produced your report, we discuss it, and then you pass that report on to community services without delay. That is in your gift, that is your power, and that's what you can do. And that would be my advice, Mr. Chairman, to you to do that. Or you could simultaneously release these minutes to community, and whichever meeting happens to come first, they cop for it. But I would always advocate that we endorse something first, and then it goes to community, and then it gets a bigger hearing. That's merely my advice to you, Mr. Chairman.
A point taken. John Lofts, you going first.
Sorry to go on. If other members think that I'm exceeding my knowledge by speaking about this matter, I spent 13 years on the old police authority, 9 of which were as vice chairman. So I do know something about your profession, but it stopped 9 years ago. Thank you.
Hey, did you want to come in?
I just wanted to counter my colleague's point here. I think you should concentrate on the fact that what we're dealing with here are key issues for our community, and those key issues should be heard by community services and scrutineered, etc., accordingly, and brought to full council if necessary. Can I remind everyone that we have a responsibility as councillors under Section 13 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998 to reduce crime and reoffending. And it seems to me that this year especially, the references and the importance that we've actually given to this has been pretty poor.
And one final point on that from me. Do you want to come in again after David? But one final point is, what we've got to realise here, that what I produce for you guys and for the council as a whole is Pan Dorset. The other councils in Dorset who are well involved on the police and crime panel and all the other panels are in agreement with this, and they've taken it back to their members. How they explain it to their members, I don't know. But I really do feel that our members should know before 6 months are up of what's going on. You know, we're about, the police force in Dorset is about to change. It's about, there's no doubt that Dorset Police will merge with Devon and Cornwall. So we really need to get our act together and sort this member out. I am very happy with take young Paul with me to approach David Flagg and Trish and just put the suggestion to them. If there's anybody else wants to come in, please do. So are we happy what we're suggesting, that myself and Paul Hilliard approach the leader and deputy and say, look, we don't really think that this is the place where this... No, he's going to say no.
Now, Chairman, I'm going to say I think what you ought to be saying is this isn't necessarily the right manner in which to deal with it. It may be the right place. I think it is. Other councillors think not. But we're all agreed that it's not the right manner. That whether it's a question of time or location, something is wrong, and that needs to be resolved. So either we're looking at a different matter, or whether it should go back to scrutiny where it came from, or whether it should go to community services. That is a matter for discussion. I beg pardon, communities. That is a matter for discussion. But I think, Chairman, you're quite right. It does need to go on, and we will see where we get to. Thank you very much.
I think Denise wanted to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I was going to say that I've no objection to this committee looking at it first, but because we've now been given these extra responsibilities, I do think there is a case for the, if you like, cycle of meetings to be altered, because it is too long. And you do a very worthy job, and in fact you do send us details of meetings that you've attended, and thank you very much for all the work that you do. We are a quasi-judicial committee, and therefore I cannot see any reason why we shouldn't, as a preliminary, deal with this, and if necessary, pass it on. And as Councillor Lofts has said, there is always full council. So I would say perhaps it could be put forward that we meet more often, because we're working on a cycle when this committee didn't have this particular responsibility. But we are quasi-judicial. We do receive training, which is more than the other committees do, apart from planning. So, you know, as a first step, I see no problem with us looking at it, but if we could deal with it, if you like, in a more expedite manner, or to the good. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So, Daniel, can I ask you to see if you can get the minutes out of this meeting so that we can get our heads together and see the way forward? Thank you. Is there anything else, members? Well, go and enjoy the rest of the sun, and thank you very much for attending. God bless you all.